right, the Supreme Court hears a case today that could affect how the judicial branch determines the constitutionality of gun control laws. The Biden administration has appealed the Fifth Circuit Court's decision to invalidate a 1994 gun restriction for people who are subject to domestic violence restraining orders. Now, the court determined that the ban is unconstitutional because it doesn't meet the burden of showing that the law is, quote, consistent with the nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation. The Biden administration doesn't agree, and the Supreme Court will have the final say during this judicial session. We won't know, of course, until June. But joining me now to discuss this, the president of the Crime Prevention Research Center, Dr. John Lott. John, good to see you again.
It's great to talk to you. Thanks for having me on.
So walk us through it. Lay out the case for us. What are we hearing differently today as opposed to other big cases that have been heard recently?
Well, this case could have a really major impact on what types of laws are deemed constitutional or not. The issue is what standard has to be met to be able to go and take away somebody's guns. Do you have to have a criminal standard where you have something beyond a reasonable doubt and somebody can have a lawyer if they can't afford one and you have a hearing? Or is it a civil case where you just need the preponderance of the evidence, which could be like 50.1% versus 49.9%, just slightly more than a coin flip in favor of you being guilty, and maybe no lawyer representing you or having no hearing. Those are pretty big differences. And the issue is whether they're going to try to redo the Bruin decision from last year. The Bruin decision said, look, you look at what the Second Amendment says. If that's not clear, you look at the legislative debate. And if it's still not clear, you go in to look to see what types of laws were in effect back in either 1791 when the Second Amendment was ratified or in 1868 when the 14th Amendment applied the Bill of Rights to the states. The thing is, this ability to take away somebody's guns solely based on a civil case, that wasn't passed federally until 1994. And so, long after those two dates. And so the Biden administration, this case, because the guy that we're talking about here is a bad guy. He had committed lots of felonies, shooting guns at people. He was a drug dealer. He had beaten up people before. And then rather than prosecuting him for those criminal cases, they eventually, after years, a prosecutor had this domestic violence restraining order, which was based solely on a civil case. And so,
well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you, as you go into this case, it's a bad guy. So, no matter if it comes out in favor of guns, it's going to look, well, give the left plenty to yell about. Oftentimes there's tea leaves to read here.
Right.
Any indication on this case at all as to how the court might rule? We've only got about 30 seconds, but give us the last word.
Well, I don't know. I think the lawyer for Rahimi did an incredibly poor job today. It's almost like he didn't want to win the case. And he's a public defender down there. And, I would think they would normally have a reasonable chance of winning this. The problem that you face is that you have two of the Republican justices, Kavanaugh and Roberts, who I think look a lot at polls rather than kind of what the Constitution says on this. And the reason why the Biden administration pushed this is you had a bad guy that nobody wants to have a gun. And on top of that, it involves domestic violence protection orders, both of which are kind of
all the red flags. Yeah, all the red flags in one place. So that's why they wanted the case. All right. I guess we'll keep an eye on it. We won't know until June, of course. Correct?
Well, I don't know. It's early in the term. The more controversial the decision, probably the later it will be when it comes out.
All right. Dr. John Lott, greatly appreciate it as always, my friend. Thank you for the update. A case that will be closely watched and could have big impact. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. After the break, a busy day in several states with elections going on. Some serious implications for the future. Michelle Backus will join me next with the latest on these coming up on America's Voice Live.